But like right now, I'm talking to you, people are listening, and I can speak to each person individually. And that's what email should be doing. It should be an extension of a conversation that you're having somewhere else.
Today's guest is somebody that has been helping us for a while and on a very unique and special skill that I believe right now is extremely important, actually more important than ever. And we're going to talk about that subject because it has to do with email marketing and what you do with your existing list. And that's something that you guys know that I push a lot, which is the process of building a list. But what I don't talk enough about is the process of nurturing a list and how do you humanize the entire process with these people that are on your central files, your identities. You guys have heard this marketing adage that has been around for ages, which is the money's in the list. I believe in that. I believe in that strongly. If you have a list, you control your own destiny. If you're only dependent on a platform like Amazon, or you're not working on accumulating phone numbers, names, emails, identities, your business will always be a liability. So because of that, you guys have strategies to grow your list. Now, what happens when you grow it? How do you nurture that? That's what we're going to work on. We're going to talk about today with Dave Royce, that he's somebody that helps me personally with my email marketing. And I've known him since 2018, in which we connected because he was helping me with marketing, email marketing for 𝗟𝗘𝗥𝗡 and for myself and other things along the way. So without further ado, tell us a little bit about your story and how you started in this world of email marketing, and this world of marketing in general, so people can understand where you came from.
Yeah, so I'm what I would consider a closet entrepreneur, in that I was doing the 9 to 5 for a long time. For first 20 years of your life, you do the 9 to 5 because you get a job and you work through your job and you try to find your pace within your life. What are your skills? What are you good at? I attended college, didn't finish the college. I wanted to go do other things. Started doing motorsports, fell into the technical side, was designing automotive stuff. Then I went ahead and started racing cars, was good at that. Realized how much money it took to race cars, and didn't really have the kind of money that it took to race cars. So I was employed to do some of that stuff. But there was something still missing in all of that. And that was, I wasn't helping enough people. Racing cars is a very solo effort. You're really helping yourself, right? You've got a team and you've got all this stuff, but you're really focused on your own personal goals, which is great. But for me, there was something missing. There was missing this thing where I wasn't really helping the community. I wasn't really helping people. I wasn't helping business. And so when I had an opportunity to move out into my own deal and start putting on motorsports events, I really started to thrive and really enjoyed helping people. I was bringing more people in to enjoy their passion, their sport. I was helping volunteers come and join. I was helping people engage in what they were passionate about. And that I really found my pace. And in that process, in order to run a business these days, of course, this was a while back, you had to do online marketing, especially with event-based businesses. You don't really have a choice because you have to go out, reach people, and then get them to physically come to you. That is different than getting someone to open an email. Persuasive email copy to get in a program, to get someone to physically show up at an event, that's a whole different animal as opposed to getting someone to join a webinar, right? That's a little different game. The commitment is huge to get somebody to take an entire weekend out and then just go to a place and enjoy. So you've got to really have your game on. And so what I learned was that the messaging was so important. And because you were talking to people that were passionate about something, you could humanize the conversation. It wasn't structured in, here's the features and benefits every time you ran an email, right? It was having a conversation with a mass of people. And that's when I really started to feel like, wow, I really, really enjoy helping people. And this platform is amazing because we can reach a lot of people that way. And I'm not one like yourself that's always on camera, that really likes to be on camera and do that. So I'm a little bit camera shy. And so I don't necessarily put out the content, but what I do is I help folks like you build the background. I'm the guy in the background, the wizard behind the curtain kind of thing, where it helps people push them to the front so they can shine. That's where I really like helping companies. So from all of that, I sold the motorsports business because it was a pretty narrow thing. I'm like, how can I help just entrepreneurs? Entrepreneurs are an amazing breed. And that's why I said I was a closet entrepreneur. I had a 9 to 5 job, doing my own thing, working every day, and actually enjoying it. but then there's always something missing sometimes. And so then after the selling that motorsports business, I kept the part that I loved, which was the marketing and the digital marketing and reaching people. And then I was reaching out to folks to actually help them grow their business the way that I had. I took a business that actually had no assets and was able to sell it because of all the marketing and communication we had. We had a thriving customer base and was able to sell that. So that's kind of how I got where I am now. And so 2005, 2006, 7, and 8, in that area is when I really started to realize the power of the email marketing. And before all the social were really huge at that point. I mean, they were there, people were using them, but they weren't as pervasive as they are today, of course.
Right, which there's a lot of changes that have happened over the years, that's for sure. So Dave, let me start off by asking you something, because people talk about you've been on the email world for quite a while already,
yes.
and obviously this was such an important part, and still it is today. I know that before I was a marketer, before I even cared to be a marketer or do a business, I used to funny side stories that I talked about this on my webinars or seminars before, but I used to dream about maybe one day getting an inheritance of something and making my life easier. So obviously that was not going to happen, especially when I saw my dad being healthier than I was. I said, that's not going to happen, so I better get to work, right? So before I was a businessman myself, which officially began somewhere around 2009, 2010 for me, email marketing was a big deal. And I hear stories about 99% open rates on emails. So in the year 2000, in the year 2002, right now, you have some horror stories on the world of email. I know a lot of it really has to do with how your subject, which is how do you humanize these campaigns? Because if you just go out there and you just promote and spam people left and right and just send out promotional material, your open rates just plummet. And they go down to, I've seen companies having an open rate as low as 3 to 4%. And then, yes, there are the industry averages, which are like 18%, 21%, 20%, etc. But still, it's not the 99% that it used to be. Maybe
never
when
will
you
be
started.
Again.
Never will be, right? So, what is your thought on that idea? Is it because email marketing is on its way down and on its way out, or is it email marketing is on its way out for those that don't know how to use it? What's your thought on that side of things?
Yeah, so as you probably know, I go back a little bit to talk about the future. So what happened back then when we used to have to dig into the technical side of email marketing to even send a list of people was not easy to do. So only few people were doing it, and it wasn't easy. And then came along the Constant Contacts and the MailChimps, which started to democratize this process, just like other platforms, where it made it accessible to so many people to be able to go do this. And so what happened is once a whole lot of people start doing something, then you have a flood of bad information going out there. And so people thought, oh, this is inexpensive. This is easy to do. I'm just going to send all the emails I can. And now, oh, well, I can reach these people. So now I'm going to start spamming people. Even though they didn't even ask for anything, now I'm going to go ahead and keep sending them anyway. It's like, it's just the evolution of these things. And so moving forward, now you had to do something about that, because everybody went from 99% open rate because they were getting quality emails in the early days. And then they started getting all the ads and the spam. And so people stopped being confident that they were going to get anything of value. And so then also you had these spam filters that kicked in. And so all of these things started to evolve to where so much chatter is going on now that 80% of what you get probably is useless anyway. So that just takes you down to 20% open rate if you're sending emails out to people that's just spam, right? So you're already taking a big chunk of that. Now, if you've got an engaged list of people who want to be part of your product, you should be over 50% on engagement. But that means you have to be sending something that they want. And you talk about this stuff, right? You talk about making sure that you're providing value to customers. And in order to provide value, you have to speak to them properly. You can't just constantly try to sell them something, right? That's not the way it works. It's, as you're very pervasive on the social platforms, and you know that the moment you try to hard sell, people stop listening, right?
Right. Right.
And so it's in email is kind of the same way. Email is more of a conversation than a pitch fest. And so that's where you get into the nurture programs. When somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I'm interested in what you're saying, why don't you send me something? We call them lead magnets and tripwires and all of those digital marketing stuff. But I don't like some of those terms. You know, the tripwire is, these are technical and tactical terms. And then you've got the funnel, right, that people talk about, the sales funnel, which is a great term, but you know what it does? It leaves out the person, it leaves out the human, it leaves out who you're speaking to. It makes it very mechanical in nature. And then I put oil in the top of my engine and it went down and it, it dispersed like, that, and it's not very humanizing. So when you start looking at who your audience is, why they're engaged with you, and start speaking to their needs instead of your own, then you realize, oh, I'm actually talking to a human. I'm not talking to a keyboard. I'm not talking to an email list. I'm talking to, maybe it's 10,000 people, maybe it's 50,000 people, maybe it's 100,000 people. But like right now, I'm talking to you, people are listening, and I can speak to each person individually. And that's what email should be doing. It should be an extension of a conversation that you're having somewhere else. And so that
I like that
journey,
okay.
that humanization, it's super important to reach people and get them to engage on the various platforms today.
An extension of what you're building that relationship, which a couple of things of what Dave said. There's something. One of the, I was telling you my story before we officially went live, Dave. Right? So
Yep.
One of the, how it was like. I was telling you about that there's a fire that was lighted, and I just cannot turn it down. Right? Turn it off right now. It's permanent. Well,
you got it.
There was a person that helped me light that fire. The first book that I ever wrote, that I ever read on the subject of marketing was from Gary Vee, and it was Crush It. And that started opening up my ideas and got my mind going into opportunities and development of platforms and businesses and things like that. There's something that Gary talks about on his content quite a bit. I've been too busy to consume his content recently. That happens. But there's something that he says which proves what Dave just said on the subject of email. And he says the following: marketers ruin everything. Have you heard that before? Yeah, Dave?
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen for email only. It happens for everything. And it rinses and repeats every single time throughout history. For example, television came in when radio was overcrowded and radio was expensive. So marketers ruined that. So they move on to television. Eventually, marketers ruined that too because it was expensive and it was overcrowded and it became impossible to profit on a television campaign. And also people lost attention on that platform. So then we move on to the internet and Google Ads, and then Google Ads became expensive because, again, it's a process repeats itself every single time. Email was one of the most incredible things ever. Actually, if you go back in history, I don't think there's many things that overtake the power of what email presented to us businesses, because it was the ability to send out messages for free to these people as long as you had them on your list. How incredible was that? Instead of having to stamp a 30-cent postcard or do any of that stuff, which was very expensive, $10,000 bulk mail packages, $20,000. Like, I mean, I know because I used to see my dad doing this when I was growing up, and he used to spend a lot of money on these bulk mail campaigns. Email made it affordable. Suddenly, marketing became affordable, right? So it was a big deal. Right. So eventually, like Dave is explaining, people got into it, and a lot of companies came in, and then it became spam. I like to use the, I don't know if you've done this research yourself. I love studying the evolution of things. So I wonder, Dave, why the heck did we come up with the name spam? And I researched that. Do you know that story, Dave? Do you know why?
I don't know that story.
Oh my God, it's so funny. If you go to Wikipedia, you'll see the information on that. Like, obviously, spam is a word that's connected with email, right? It's not being used anywhere else. But the fact of the matter is, that spam is a word that has been around for 100 years, and it's a canned meat product, all right?
That's right.
Which is synonymous with trash,
Yep.
low quality, poisonous food that you put in your body that you don't wish on your worst enemies. That's spam, right? So the story comes with like a TV show that supposedly was, they were desperate for some food, and they started asking for, like, it was some kind of funny scene that they wanted to get the lowest quality meal on the restaurant, and they started banging the tables. Spam, spam, we want spam, spam, spam. And it became synonymous with unwanted communication, unwanted food, right? So so that email marketing and spam, it's a big word. So it became like, oh, email marketing, there's a lot of spam going on right now. But there's a lot of value in it. That same process, Dave, you know that I'm a big fan of, for example, messenger marketing and ManyChat.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right? So the same thing is going to happen. That's what I tell people, like, look, the same thing is going to happen. Facebook is trying to slow it down. How are they trying to do so? I don't blame them. But at the beginning of the year, in 2020, they inserted a rule, and they made it mandatory that across every single messenger channel. And they said, you do not have the right to send a message to somebody if they have not engaged with you in the last 24 hours.
Period. Compliant.
Yeah, exactly. So now if they catch you doing that, you're going to get your channel shut down. You're going to lose it. And I also have seen that on platforms like Infusionsoft, Dave, that if you send too much unwanted communication, they will shut you down, correct?
Well, shut you down is a interesting term. We can get into the technicalities of that, but yeah, I mean, there are limits, and because there are laws now, we didn't get into my last conversation there. I didn't get into the laws where it progressed into the government taking over and saying you need permission-based marketing, and I actually very much embrace permission-based marketing, and so that it kind of goes through all of the channels now. You need permission, really, to send. You can't buy a list anymore. These are known lists, and you just can't buy a list and send millions of people an email. I mean, I'm sure there's ways around it, but it's just not something we condone.
Right. So you don't recommend anybody do that anymore, right? Like they used to.
Well, no, because the platforms that you use to send the emails, I mean, how are you going to scrub an email? There's seeded emails in those. There's known lists. There's patterns. There's all these things that are built into these lists because they just get cycled through. And the softwares are sophisticated. And why? Because it affects their business. And anytime you affect someone else's business negatively, they're going to take it seriously. And so platforms like Infusionsoft and other CRM platforms, they have to meet these ratings on their servers in order to keep this delivery going. And so it gets pretty technical in the background, and we can go into a little bit of that after. But it's very important that people have good communications with their customers and prospects.